What seems to be a traumatic and painful last moment on Earth can turn into a life-changing spiritual experience, transforming the beliefs and values of a person in a positive way. These are broadly known as Spiritually Transformative Experiences, or STEs. Dr. Yvonne Kason, who coined the term, says that research shows STEs are happening to millions of people around the world. Near-death experiences, Kundalini awakenings, visions of heavenly realms, and godly beings all fall under this category. Ancient texts give us many examples. But as positive as these experiences can be, some people fear that if they share their story, they'll be labeled crazy. Are STEs real? What triggers them? And what kind of an impact can they have on people and our world? I'm Sue Biamba, and this is Mysteries of Life. Dr. Yvonne Kason says that in 1979, she was a passenger on a small plane when it suddenly dropped several thousand feet in a matter of seconds. She was overwhelmed with fear and panic until she closed her eyes and felt herself leaving her body and had a feeling of absolute peace. Entering a realm of white light filled with powerful unconditional love, she says she realized at that moment that God is not the judgmental, bearded figure she was taught about as a child. Eventually, she was drawn back to her physical body, which had crashed. Despite the pain, she felt grateful for the experience, but kept it to herself for years, fearing she would be called crazy. We're honored to have spoken with Dr. Kason, who first coined the term Spiritually Transformative Experiences. She has over 40 years of experience in the field and was the first Canadian medical doctor to specialize in the counseling and research of individuals who have experienced diverse types of STEs. She is the founder and the president of Spiritual Awakenings International, a renowned speaker and a valuable resource on the topic. Dr. Kason says she has had multiple STEs, including 5 near-death experiences, and has numerous publications on the subject. Before her first adult near-death experience, Dr. Yvonne Kason was a family physician who specialized in psychotherapy. She worked as a family doctor in Toronto, Canada, and taught at the University of Toronto's Department of Family and Community Medicine. But her life was forever changed in 1979.
When I had my first adult near-death experience, I was actually finishing my residency, my specialty training at the University of Toronto. I was a young doctor on a medevac flight, and I was in a plane crash. The plane crashed, and I almost died, and I had this incredible experience that I now know is a near-death experience. I experienced that my body, I left my body and I went into this incredible white light realm that was filled with love. Absolute incredible love. The most powerful love I'd ever felt in my life. And nobody had to tell me, nobody had to explain it to me. I just knew somehow, I just knew in my soul that what I was feeling, that incredible love, that was the love of the higher power. What I had been raised as a child to call God. But what I was experiencing God to be was not anything like what I'd been taught as a child. It was not an old man with a long white beard sitting on a throne judging me. Have you been good? Have you been bad? No. That was not at all what I was experiencing. What I was actually experiencing was that this love power behind the universe, it was more like an infinite force that is infinitely intelligent, that knows everything past, present, and future, and that also loves all of us with the most incredible unconditional love. And while I was out of body in this white light love realm, I also knew things. Like somehow I knew that if my physical body down below that was waiting to be rescued after the plane crash, if my physical body died, that what I think of as me would live on, because I was already there. I was still, what I think of as me was still very much alive, although my body down there was freezing to death. And this experience also somehow revealed to me a deep understanding that's very difficult to explain, but I understood how everyone and all the world's religions are all trying to understand the same thing, but they're just coming at it from different angles. And it's like coming up a mountain from different angles. When you're at the bottom, it looks like you're really far apart. But as you're getting closer and closer to the top, it's like, oh, we're going to the same top. We're going to the same peak. It's the same one higher power that we've been striving to understand, but with different methods. And so I completely broadened my spiritual understanding after this experience. And I became no longer afraid of death, because I knew I would live on. And I also had much greater understanding and compassion for people who had different spiritual views from me, because I understood we're all trying to figure out the same thing. When I came back, when my body was resuscitated and I was brought back into my body, it felt like a genie being sucked back into a bottle. It felt like whoosh, that I was suddenly sucked back in through the top of my head, and that I'd been in this big, expansive place above my body, and suddenly, whoop, I was sucked into the small confines of my body. And as soon as I was back, I knew I was back. And I remember I was saying, I'm back, I'm going to live, I'm going to live. And probably people around me thought I was confused or something, but I wasn't confused. It really felt like I had been somewhere else, and now I was back. I'd been on the other side, and now I was back. I absolutely knew that the higher power was real, that there was a higher power. And whether you believed it or not didn't matter, it was still real. And what I also knew is that that higher power loves all of us with this tremendous, powerful, unconditional love, which was also not the way I'd been raised to think. So this was a totally new way of relating to the higher power, what I call God, in knowing that God loves us. But even more than that, I knew that the higher power loves all of us, not just some of us who are in a particular religious tradition, but loves each and every one of us, that we're all like children of this one loving higher power. So it really changed me tremendously in a spiritual way. Another thing that it changed me tremendously was that it made me lose my fear of death. Because before that, I think like most people, you wonder, oh dear, what's going to happen when I die? And whereas now, I actually welcome it. because I know it's going to be absolutely beautiful on the other side. But you know, for many years, as I tried to find out what's even the name for what happened to me, I discovered that in medicine, really there wasn't a name. You know, that in medicine, these sorts of experiences were being called a hallucination or your imagination or a sign of mental illness. And I knew this wasn't true. So I had to secretly research near-death experiences and other spiritual experiences while I was practicing medicine as a regular Western-trained medical doctor at the University of Toronto.
The medical field has largely dismissed NDEs as hallucinations, illusions, or other physiological or psychological phenomena associated with brain function. It was common for people who experience near-death experiences to fear being labeled crazy. Dr. Bruce Grayson, a psychiatrist and researcher in the field of NDEs, has written about the fear of stigma and how it can prevent people from sharing their experiences. In an interview with Scientific American, Grayson said, "People fear being stigmatized, fear being ridiculed, fear being rejected, fear losing their jobs or their families."
But something interesting started to happen is that more and more people, I guess, heard about me via the grapevine. They started coming to see me in my practice as patients, and they were telling me their stories of their spiritual experiences. And some of them were near-death experiences, some of them were mystical experiences, some of them were after-death communications, some of them were Kundalini awakening. And so as I was researching by reading books, I was also hearing from people coming and talking to me. And so I absolutely knew the medical profession was wrong. This is not all hallucinations. These spiritual experiences are real. I felt there was a need for an umbrella term that people could understand, that all of these diverse types of spiritual experiences would fit under, because I felt they were all connected in some way. So when I was writing my first book on STEs back in 1990s, I came up with this term, spiritually transformative experiences. And so one subcategory is the near-death experience. Another subcategory are mystical experiences, and there are many types of mystical experiences. And then another category is in yoga, it's called Kundalini, or spiritual energy awakening, or it could be called ki activation in different traditions. There's different words for a spiritual energy activation. And then there's a whole other category that's very big, is the psychic and intuitive experiences, which would include things like after-death communications and mediumship and clairvoyant visions and clairsentience, which is like a really strong intuition, clairaudience, where people hear guidance from maybe their guardian angels or their higher self. So there are all these different types. And another type is the inspired creativity, that some people go into almost like a mystical state of consciousness during their creative episodes.
Thus, the term spiritually transformative experience was coined. Dr. Kason has done extensive research into how spiritual experiences, such as NDEs, have long-lasting transformative effects, both behavioral and physiological. In a study published in Explore, the Journal of Science and Healing, Dr. Kason and her co-authors, Drs. Park and Woolacott, wrote that transformational changes in participants included increased sensory sensitivity, creativity, and changes in beliefs, including a desire to serve others, a sense of unity with all, and the immortality of the spirit. So how common are these transformational changes following an NDE? Dr. Bruce Grayson has studied this field extensively. One of his studies, titled Daily Spiritual Experiences Before and After Near-Death Experiences, states that NDEs are associated with radical and permanent changes in attitudes, beliefs, and lifestyle. It states the after effects typically reported are increases in concern for others, an appreciation of life, as well as decreases in the fear of death, materialism, and competitiveness. The study notes other characteristic changes after NDEs are increased focus on the present, deeper religious faith or heightened spirituality, search for knowledge, and greater appreciation for nature. Dr. Grayson has also said that, as research suggests, NDEs typically cause people to become more spiritual, but not more religious. In an interview with Big Think, Dr. Grayson said near-death experiencers tend to look on organized religions as being simplifications of what the spiritual world really is. A study published in the Journal of Near-Death Studies titled The Near-Death Experience, a Study of Spiritual Transformation, had similar findings. The study, conducted in the early 90s, surveyed 51 near-death experiencers to discover if and how their lives were changed as a result of their NDEs. The survey, consisting of 31 questions, had fascinating results. The study found that those who considered themselves to be quiet or very spiritual and or religious doubled following the NDE, increasing from 43 to 87%. And those with an absolute belief in God increased dramatically from 24 to 82%. However, this study found that while respondents became more spiritual or religious, they also became less likely to subscribe solely to religious doctrine or organized religion. The study states the majority of experiencers, regardless of religious affiliation, became more spiritually oriented and less church-oriented after the NDE. Interestingly, those who described themselves as spiritually oriented but not church-involved prior to the NDE remained steadfast in these prior convictions, and in fact, this group grew significantly, from 29 to 57%. Another key finding was a notable increase in belief that there is not just one path to God, jumping from 28 to 65% following the near-death experience. As we explored, research suggests people become more spiritual after near-death experiences. But what is the significance of this? What does it mean? And what, if any, impact does it have on society? I'm sure many of you at home have experienced firsthand how your spirituality or faith has assisted you in many areas of your life. There's also a great body of research showing the benefits of becoming a more spiritual person. This includes stress reduction, immune system boosts, increased longevity, improved mental health, lowered blood pressure, and increased job and life satisfaction. Quality of life and interpersonal relationships also improve dramatically. After surviving the plane crash, Dr. Kason thought her brush with death and the spiritual world was over. However, life had other plans for her. Dr. Kason went on to have multiple other spiritually transformative experiences. During her last near-death experience in 2003, Dr. Kason suffered a severe head injury. She was disabled for 12 years until a miracle happened.
On February 24th, 2016, I was meditating, and all of a sudden, inwardly, I perceived this volcano of liquid light erupting in the center of my brain. Like inwardly, I could see it. And it literally was like the center of my brain had been in darkness for over 12 years, and now the lights came on. Some part of my brain woke up after being asleep for more than 12 years, and my brain was healed. And what happened with this healing, it was like floodgates open, and all these ideas of my experiences and the strong inspired urge to write. And I got the very strong inner guidance pass on what you have learned.
Dr. Kason resumed writing after her brain healing. Her latest book, Soul Lessons from the Light, published in 2022, chronicles her spiritual awakening, all 5 of her near-death experiences, and her recovery. In 2020, she started Spiritual Awakenings International. Dr. Kason says she believes this is part of her mission, which she enlightened to during her spiritual encounters.
I had this calling from Spirit to start it, basically, to raise awareness worldwide about the diverse types of spiritual experiences, such as near-death experiences that people are having today, and that they're real, that they're not a sign of mental illness, they're not a hallucination, as some people tend to think. Since we launched in 2020, Spiritual Awakenings International has exploded. We now have subscribers in 77 countries around the world, which I think is just phenomenal. And what it shows is that, to me, is that everyone, the whole planet, is in a spiritual awakening right now.
So why are so many people at this time in history experiencing different forms of spiritual awakenings? Dr. Kason says this is a question only the ultimate intelligence behind the universe could know.
My best guess would be, and my understanding from having been on the other side, is that life is like a school. And we have many incarnations because there are many grades and classes we have to go through in school and many different kinds of lessons we need to learn. So it's the school of life to learn soul lessons. I think it's all part of our evolution, if you like, our expansion of consciousness that is what's happening to people. Like, our evolution is not that we're going to grow another arm or another leg or something like that, but our evolution now is in consciousness.
It wasn't long ago that science was completely skeptical regarding spiritually transformative experiences, let alone have a term for it. But thanks to brave pioneers like Dr. Yvonne Kason, research and recognition of their significance continues to grow. STEs are increasingly recognized for their potential therapeutic value in treating conditions such as anxiety, depression, and PTSD. In addition, they can foster a sense of compassion and interconnectedness with others, as individuals may develop a greater sense of empathy and understanding. Based on current research, they can also inspire people to seek out further spiritual growth and exploration, and propel an increased desire to be loving, ethical, and of service to others. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sue Biamba, and we'll see you next time on Mysteries of Life.